I think that there's a couple things to take away from what Ohio State was able to do from an NIL standpoint. The first one being that they only took about 6 or 7 transfers, additions to their program. So they still built from, largely high school recruiting, at least, this past year, and guys that have been in the program. But they had so many guys that turned down the opportunity to be, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, seventh round draft picks come back to school. And as I understand it, that's where Ohio State spent a lot of their NIL budget, was getting players to come back to college. And, we've seen that more so much in college basketball at this point. Think about Oscar Tshiebwe a couple years ago at Kentucky, and, he came back for $2 million. Drew Timme at Gonzaga came back for, it was reported somewhere in that amount, somewhere in that range, if not more. I can tell you that at North Carolina, Armando Bacot was making north of $2 million, to come back for his, super senior type year. I think that's where you spend your money big time in the portal, is retaining players. And look, Ohio State's recruited better than South Carolina and a lot of other schools in the country. I mean, they've probably been a top 5 team recruiting over the last 20 years, if not, last 10 years for sure. So you already have so much talent already, but you add the right transfers and you retain the guys that can come back. And, I think that the bigger message in this, in my opinion, is, a lot of these guys need to consider staying in college and getting that degree and getting paid handsomely, whether it's, NFL minimum salary, for a rookie salary, or, you miss out on that big signing day, but how much better off are you with a degree, and how much better off are you, making that money at that young age, investing it wisely and setting yourself up with a nest egg. So that was my big takeaway. Look, and Notre Dame spent money as well. South Carolina spent some money, guys. They spent some money this offseason. Everyone says, well, they didn't get that stud defensive tackle or that stud wide receiver. And I don't think that's how they want to do it. I don't think that's how it should be done. They spent money. Trust me, South Carolina allotted. I don't want to say the number. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the number. I don't know if that number will get out eventually, but I don't think that, from a competitive standpoint, you really want that number to get out on a show like this. But I will say that it was on par for an SEC team, if not an upper echelon SEC team. And to get a Dylan Stewart back, to get a Lenore Sellers back, that's where the money needs to be spent at the portal. When you find those elite difference makers, that's where you spend your money. And Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look what South Carolina did in the offseason so far with player retention. That was obviously one of the top priorities, and they did pretty dang good at it. I mean, you got Lenora Sellers and Dylan Stewart back, who those guys could have gone anywhere they wanted to in the country, really, and play. Guys like, and just continue, like some of those younger defensive players, got like a Jalen Kilgore, or, some of these young offensive linemen who maybe didn't play as much this year, but, are talented and can easily start this year. They retained them. And a lot of those, freshmen who got some film this year, maybe could have gone a lot of different places, but they're coming back. And I think South Carolina did a really good job of retaining players, and that kind of stands to your point of how important that is. And South Carolina was really kind of aced that this year so far.